2023 has been one hell of a year for video games. Excellent releases have been dropping continuously all year round. I've tried to play as much as I can, and I've arrived at the notion that my favourite game of 2023 is Spider-Man 2. I platinumed the game in around 5 days, I think. I just fell in love with almost everything about this game, and the key word here is almost. But let's get into it. In terms of spoilers, there won't be any traditional spoilers until we get towards the end of the video, and I will warn you before that. However, if you consider gameplay spoilers, then there will be some in this video. I'm going to show set pieces, I'm going to reference certain boss battles that could be considered spoilers, so just keep that in mind as you watch. I'll also mention a couple story arcs that should have been obvious given the premise of the game, but anyway, let's start off with the combat. So the combat of Spider-Man 2 is just straight up insane. Video games are meant to be fun, and this game just is. There's so many abilities to choose from. You get given a bunch at the start of the game and basically just told to go and have fun. It does at times become ability spam, waiting for cooldowns and such, but that doesn't mean that it's not fun. When you combine the abilities with the gadgets you also have, it opens up a whole new way to play. Like, you can use a gadget to bring all the enemies together and then use an AoE ability to take them all out at once. There's also a lot of different types of enemies that require you to utilise all your Spidey moves to take them out. The animations are also really top tier. It's simply just fun to take enemies down because it looks awesome. The feedback with these attacks is also top quality, so it also feels awesome. I can see how this combat loop could become repetitive for some. It's a lot of combos and abilities, and a lot of battles do feel very similar, but for me, it just never got repetitive. I left this game wanting more, which for a game I put 25 hours into and got the platinum, I think that's pretty impressive. The boss battles are also just insane. I'm going to spoil a couple of them here, so you can skip to this time if you want to avoid the mentioning of the boss battles. The spectacle is just off the charts in almost all of these. The Kraven fight was just exceptional. You can feel the frustration and anger growing from Pete as the battle wears on, and you can also feel the enjoyment Kraven gets out of each blow. It's just magnificent. Then immediately following that fight, you get to fight symbiote Pete as Miles, and it's just perfect. Fighting a fellow Spider-Man is awesome, and you start to get a taste of your own medicine. But narratively, it's also a really big moment for Miles as he goes toe to toe with his mentor and proves himself by taking him down. And then there's the damn Scream fight. Holy shit, I wasn't even expecting Scream to be in this game, but it's just amazing how you just see Harry turning MJ into Scream. It's amazing. And then you have the actual fight where you're having to dodge attacks and land your own hits, which isn't easy, by the way. I did struggle with this fight. I beat it on my first attempt, but it wasn't easy and I didn't have a lot of health for a lot of it. Scream attacks hard and fast, and the dodge windows are very tight. It was a very difficult fight, but it just made it all the more exciting and brilliant. Having to dodge these attacks, as I mentioned, whilst MJ is just roasting Pete into oblivion was fantastic. The tension of this fight for both Spider-Man and Peter Parker was top notch.
There's only one job you care about!
But these were just my favourite 3, and there isn't a bad boss fight in the game. They're all exceptional. Then there's just New York itself, which is just awesome to explore. There's a few people moaning that you can't ride the roller coaster in the open world, and you can't ride the train. It's a Spider-Man game, dude. They're non-issues completely. Traversal is of course ridiculously fun. You're swinging around, you can purchase abilities that make it even cooler. The swinging animations are amazing, doing the skills in the air. They just flow really nicely regardless of when you decide to stop doing the spin. It's just fantastic. And then there's the wingsuit. The wingsuit did worry me at first because I wasn't sure if it would really work, but it does, and it's actually really awesome. It doesn't take away from the fun of swinging at all, and utilising wind tunnels to keep your momentum going is a really nice touch. The new areas you can explore are pretty cool, but I'd be lying if I said they were game changers or anything, but at least it's cool that they're there. I also actually feel that side content is hugely improved from the first game. Aside from some of the EMF experiments and the god-awful Miles school missions, every piece of side content in this game is at least good. I was immensely impressed with Mysterio's side content in particular. The presentation and spectacle was brilliant, and the narrative focus around Quentin Beck's character was fantastic. There's also of course the Wraith stuff, which is an exhilarating sequence of missions with a brilliant payoff, and it's always nice to see Yuri appear again.
There you are.
Hey! In general, the game just has a really fun platinum, which the other two games also had, but I had even more fun doing this one. I am now going to be talking about the story, and I will be discussing spoilers, so if you don't want to hear those, then you'll have to turn off the video now, but not before leaving it a like anyway, thank you very much. The story is for the most part great. They really nail the Peter Parker and Miles Morales element of things, and for the most part the Spidey stuff is also brilliant. The sheer element of spectacle throughout the entire game is outstanding. They really nailed a lot of the core elements necessary in regards to creating a Spider-Man iteration. The voice acting from pretty much everyone is also wonderful, top performances all round.
This is good.
It's great to see Pete and Miles working together. The missions where they're doing spider stuff with each other are brilliant. The set pieces come thick and fast, and they always seek to top the one before them. A lot of characters have great story arcs. Peter and Miles each learn important lessons through the game. It feels like MJ has a much bigger role than she did in the first game, and seems to be learning more about her own purpose and goals as the game moves on. And that's before mentioning other characters such as Harry and Norman, who each go through their own thing. I will say that Miles' side characters are kinda just there. Rio, Genki and Haley really don't do anything of note in this game. Genki has a more prominent role in the spider stuff, but again, he's just kinda there. Hell, I actually go even further and say that until Pete gets the symbiote suit, Miles doesn't really do much either. They're setting up his arc with Lee in the background, which is nice, and that's actually one of my favourite parts of the game, but he spends a good half of this game just not really doing anything. He absolutely comes into his own eventually, and plays a vital role in the third act, but I'd have liked him to have been given more to do in the opening half. Kraven absolutely killed it though. His execution is handled brilliantly. His quest to find the strongest foe he can is quite intimidating, and his reasons for doing so, when revealed, paint a picture that make him a really well-rounded villain, and a worthy adversary of the Spider-Man.
The spider is mine.
Although I will point out, Venom kinda disappointed me a little bit. He's cool as shit, I'm not denying that. The moment when he first appears is perfect. They got the atmosphere and tone down to a T. And his motivations are perfectly Venom. I like Harry as Venom, and how he becomes Venom is fantastic from a character perspective, but he sort of just appears at the end of the game to wreak havoc once Kraven's arc is finished. Kraven was clearly this game's primary antagonist, and I was very happy about that because he was executed to perfection. And whilst this isn't as big of an issue as the Spider-Man 3 debacle, where Venom was essentially thrown into the movie to sell toys, it was clear that Venom wasn't the primary focus of this game. He's foreshadowed perfectly fine and everything, he's executed well, but if you were coming into this game expecting Spider-Man versus Venom, then you'd be disappointed, as he's only in the game for like 3 or 4 hours. The Pete symbiote stuff didn't last long, which I'm honestly perfectly okay with. We've seen symbiote Pete before. It's gradual, he's not just an outright dick out of nowhere, and it's done well, but it doesn't last very long. However, symbiote Pete does lead to one of the best sequences in the entire game, the aforementioned Kraven and symbiote Pete back-to-back fights. The game also does a great job of featuring cameos from other villains such as Lizard, which is always great. It was nice to see Martin Lee back as well, reflecting on his past mistakes and trying to make up for them. The whole Miles and Lee arc is one of my favourite parts of the game. Miles finding it in his heart not to forgive, but to accept what Lee did to his father, is key to his growth as a character and as a Spider-Man. And as I mentioned earlier, it's essentially the backbone of most of what Miles does in the game.
You two reminded me that that's not who I am. When you help someone, you help everyone.
In terms of the ending, this game's ending is noticeably weaker than the previous two. There's no emotional sucker punch here. There isn't an Aunt May or a Finn moment. You could argue Harry being in a coma is it, but that's pretty crap. He's trying to kill you for the last few hours of the game, and he was obviously going to turn into Venom right from the start. I don't think it surprised many people. I didn't feel an emotional connection to Harry at all. I didn't think he was that likeable anyway before all the Venom stuff, and he's not even dead. I felt like following the excellent final boss of Venom, we'd get an emotional payoff, and we don't. Also, adding the fact that Miles is a walking Adidas advertisement for the most crucial moment of the game, which is inexcusable, and an ugly suit nonetheless. We've then got the post-credit scene teasing the Goblin for the next game, which is just fine, I guess. I love the Goblin in general, and he does fit the world Insomniac have created, but I don't know if I really want to see another Goblin iteration, man. I hope he plays a secondary role, and that somebody else is the primary villain of the next game. It may sound like I'm complaining, and that's because I kind of am, but it's only because I love so much of what this game did. Hell, it's my favourite game of the year. I just wish it had a better ending. I know some people have issues with Peter deciding to take a break and giving Miles the mantle, but that was always going to happen. The game literally starts with Pete getting fired on his first day as a teacher because he has to go and fight Sandman. He's been forced to deny Peter the chance to live as Peter. There's only so much you can save the city before you need to save yourself. It's one of the core components of Peter's arc throughout the game. It makes perfect sense narratively, and I have no issues with it. I actually quite like it. Miles is great, but in general, I wish this game had a bigger emotional payoff at the end. Aunt May dying at the end of the first game has stuck with me ever since. It's one of the most memorable video game endings of the last decade, and I feel like they've let themselves down by not having a moment like that at the end of the second game. It's a minor gripe in the grand scheme of things when you consider how much this game gets right. Excellent combat, absurdly fun traversal, bundles of fantastic side content, and an exhilarating story make this game an absolute must play for just about everybody. There is a few games I've not played this year that will be a lot of people's game of the years. I missed Tears of the Kingdom, I simply don't think I have the time for Baldur's Gate, and Alan Wake not being physical turned me off for the time being. But I can still confidently claim that Spider-Man 2 is my 2023 game of the year. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, then please consider leaving a like, because that would greatly help me out. And if you want to see more videos from me, then you could always consider subscribing, because I upload every single Monday. But that is all for now. Have a nice day, and goodbye.
Let's hit the Brooklyn Bridge. It has some great views.
That road is long.